Hey everybody, Tom Albano here along with Nick Morgasen for Empty the Bench, and joining us now. So when we first talked to this content creator back in the Unspoken Podcast days of early 2018, he had just cracked 100,000 subscribers. He is now at over 500,000. You know him for series such as This Week in Sports Ball, Days of Our Steelers. Joining us now, Schlasser, aka UrinatingTree. Schlasser, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, boys. How you doing today?
Doing okay.
Good.
It's the end of 2021. It's these last 2 years have felt like forever, and yet it feels like we're about to have a new year, and we're having the end of the NFL season. Of course, got to start things off with, you and your Steelers fandom. So let me ask it right off the bat, Ben. He has reportedly told people this is it. He is going to be departing after this season.
He should have retired a couple years ago, to be completely honest with you. I said they should have cut ties, like a mutual separation last year. You're pretty much doing this as like a final goodbye for Ben, and you've pretty much, it's very slim that they're going to make the playoffs. I joke that the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl, which, they are. Like, look at all the BS that's happened throughout the year, all the fluke wins and the high-end talent. It's like, this team's going to the Super Bowl. But no. They needed to win against Kansas City. They got just destroyed. It was a complete clinic. It was bad. Like, in all facets, it was bad. But, I think, I can definitely see this being his last year since his body's starting to break down on him. He's been dealing with a torn labrum in his shoulder. He has a torn pec on his other side, shoulder issues. He's had hip issues, the elbow a couple years ago. So I think, unfortunately, it's his body telling him it's time.
Yeah, it's time. It's been time. I completely agree with you. It's amazing how he's been playing through all these different injuries. Plus drama in the locker room.
It's sad, unfortunately, because if you look at Ben back in his late 2000s, him moving around, creating space in the chaos, he can't do that anymore. And it's just like he's just a statue in the pocket, and they have a terrible O-line. So either they have to force it out really quickly, or he's getting killed in the backfield, which is been pretty standard. Against the Vikings, there were some really bad missed blocks by I think both guards, and he just got smacked both times. I'm like, oh my god.
And I'm a Najee supporter, but it's like, I'm a Giants fan. He's a Jets fan. We know from experience that if you don't have an O-line,
that's why I didn't want to pick Najee. I like Najee. I think he's a good player. I just don't think it was the right fit because you don't have the line to block for him.
No.
And it's really been showing because he has to hurdle through 3 different guys to get like a 2-yard gain. It's not good.
No.
It's like, look, I'm going to jump over one guy, spin over another, and there's a 2-yard loss for Najee Harris, tackled by Chris Jones in the backfield.
So the quarterback situation then. So let's say this is it for Ben. Then this year's the upcoming quarterback draft class, supposedly, from my understanding, is trash.
It's weak.
But what do the Steelers do? Are they gonna? What do you want them to do versus what do you think they will do?
It's my bias for Pitt. I think they should go after Kenny Pickett. He had blossomed this past year. I think he's like a really good prospect. I think he would thrive in a system, give it time. But I think the Steelers, what they're going to do is, I don't think they're going to try and rebuild. I think they're going to think, oh, it's injuries that killed us this year. So what they're going to do is they're probably going to bring in a veteran quarterback and try run the table again, which it's not going to work. Like, who are you going to bring in? Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Ryan? It's like, okay.
Cam Newton.
Cam Newton? No, I think he's done after this year. His shoulder's just destroyed. You could always bring in Daniel Jones.
I was waiting.
I'm sorry. The Giants are committed to keeping him.
Oh, man. By the way, speaking of surprises, if you want to talk about that, what do you think the biggest surprise this NFL season was? Was it a team? Was it a player? Was it COVID? What was the biggest surprise for
surprise? I'd probably say the Bengals doing as well as they had. I had expected them to probably have a little improvement, but nowhere near leading the AFC North. To be fair, there are a lot of different elements there. Cleveland has just been wrecked by injuries and a lot of that stuff. Baltimore's had injuries, like a ton of them. Plus, they've had some terrible choices for going for 2 a couple times. And Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. But they crushed them both times. So Like, I mean, the Bengals are looking good right now. And I mean, they have a strong defense. Burrow is the real deal. I was saying this last year. Jamar Chase is interesting. I mean, and I was one who said like they should have gone after Penei Sewell, which I thought would have been a good pick too. But I think like Chase has been better than advertised.
Nick knows that for weeks on end in this NFL is streaming, I have been screaming to give the Bengals respect. I mean, I love this wide receiver core that they got here with Boyd and Chase and Higgins.
And T. Higgins.
Yeah. Mixon. As a Mixon fantasy owner in a dynasty league, I was so pissed last season. I was like, wanted to get rid of him, but I had no better players. And now this season, he has just been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on from that, speaking of making picks, we know your history of making picks, but
oh Lord.
As of the end of week 16, who do you have in the Super Bowl and why?
Who? Right now, it's probably going to be really predictable. I'm probably going to say Chiefs and who would come out of the NFC? Probably say Packers, State Farm Bowl. That makes sense because, like, I mean, it's like, that's going to be an NFL like classic right there. But the Chiefs look strong. They've bounced back. They looked really bad early in the year too. It's like I remember when they played the Giants. I was like, wow, you beat the Giants and you look terrible doing so. Congratulations.
I remember thinking that was more of a loss for the Chiefs than it was for the Giants at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's interesting you bring that up. All about the money. I mean, that's what the NFL is about anyway.
Oh, yeah. But well, actually, if it were money, they probably do Rams Chargers and like the most boring Super Bowl. Also, Buccaneers Patriots. That'd be another big one.
I mean, I'm the one who's been saying that Herbert's a top 3 MVP candidate this year.
Herb's been doing amazing.
Unfortunately, his defense isn't helping him.
No. That
30 points to the Texans. A Texans team that was hit by COVID hard. No. Sorry.
But to go back to the State Farm Bowl, let's talk about this. What are your thoughts on the term health and safety protocols? Are you getting a little tired of this already?
Well, it's ironic because they talk about health and safety protocols when they do nothing to protect health or safety. So you have a bunch of concussion protocols that don't actually prevent concussions because it's a contact sport. There's nothing you can do there. You have taunting penalties that are a point of emphasis, quote unquote, because you're supposed to protect the children, even though you have gambling and like alcohol commercials playing nonstop during football games. It's like protecting the children, sponsored by Budweiser. It's like, okay, yeah.
Hello, DraftKings. Hello, FanDuel. How are you?
I got nothing against DraftKings and FanDuel. Like, I'm sponsored by DraftKings in a few segments. They're a good company. Yeah. I'm really high on them. But don't say you're about the children when you're talking about elements that are not geared towards children.
Right.
You're at that point, they're better off with the what's it called? If there is a State Farm Super Bowl, you might as well just have State Farm as the sponsor for every commercial.
Well, I mean, they probably will. They'll probably invest like $10 million. They'll talk about like the Rodgers raid and the Patrick Price. And they'll bring in Jake Fromm and make a really bad joke about Jake from State Farm.
Wait a minute. Tom brought that up on the last episode we did on the podcast.
Jake from State Farm, yes.
Yeah, that's all I did. That's the first thing I thought when he started. He's like, oh, look, it's Jake from State Farm.
But to follow up on I guess one of the weirdest or strangest incidents during a press conference. Aaron Rodgers and toegate or footgate.
Yes, you're not seeing my feet. You got to go on my OnlyFans for that. Sorry.
But what do you think about that whole thing?
I think it's completely overblown. I think like the COVID toe does hurt a little bit. I think Aaron is dealing with pain. I feel like the media is making it a bigger deal than it actually is. It's like, okay, Aaron has COVID toe, but I feel like it's just like there is pain. I mean, that COVID toe is a legitimate thing. It has to do with, I think, like abscesses and just swelling of the toe. And especially for movement, I feel like there's going to be like an issue. I think he can't actually take painkillers for it because he has to have like the feel of the turf, if I remember correctly. So that's why like there's like the constant talk on like every single show. It's like Aaron Rodgers has COVID toe. What does this mean for the Packers Super Bowl chances? And that's all they've been saying for 5-6 months. It's like, dude, stop.
Well, I got to say with Aaron, he probably has had one of the most interesting 2021s of all your athletes, from that blown NFC Championship game, all the drama of, is he going to come back? Is he going to be traded? This whole COVID thing with McAfee and toegate. He's had the most interesting 2021.
And I'm mentioning still owning Chicago.
Never that too. I still own you. I still own you. Probably up there with one of this season's moments. Up there with Cam Newton going, "I'm back,"
which is funny because you talk about taunting, and that's the epitome of taunting.
Of course it is.
Okay. Yeah, children are watching, but I mean, even Chicago kids know that Aaron Rodgers owns at least a timeshare there. So.
Tom, let me say one thing about an Aaron Rodgers bit that kind of got a lot of views on our end. Speaking of ridiculous comments that I made on the podcast where I said that he should have been traded to the Browns.
That actually wouldn't have been a bad idea. Like my idea for the Browns was trading Baker Mayfield for Dak Prescott before he got re-signed. I thought it's like, dude, but like the problem is like the Texans, Dallas came to their senses, realized they needed Dak Prescott, which I mean, that injury was the best thing that happened to his wallet. It's like, Jerry, pay up. Look at these quarterbacks. Look at how bad your offense is. Pay up. That's pretty much all he did.
And now look at where Dallas is and where Baker Mayfield and Cleveland are.
Well, Baker Mayfield is he's bad. I mean, he's visibly injured. He's a liability right now because all he's doing is forcing passes. Like, he cost Cleveland the game, yet they have 3 timeouts. Nick Chubb is dominating them, and he's throwing they're making him throw like bad passes. Like, all Baker does is go on progressive commercials and roll to the right. That's Baker Mayfield. But I mean, we play the Steelers. So, I mean, one of us is getting eliminated. It's either the Browns or the Steelers, or we're both at the dire straits point. So, but if they do tie, I think the Browns are out. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's just like, I think both fan bases are really miserable. It's like, just put us out of our misery already.
You mean
just like the Giants and Jets?
Well, we can all put bags on our heads at this point.
Yeah, I think that's nearly every single fan base, except like maybe a few at the top. It's like, God, make it stop.
Well,
do you think Atlanta's just sitting there like, oh, we're going to the Super Bowl? It's like, Jesus Christ, make it end.
You mean 28-0 later?
If that.
All right, let's move off of football. Let's talk a little bit about baseball. I mean, we don't really have much to talk about with baseball, but who do you think right now is the biggest party to blame for the lockout? The Players Association, the owners, Manfred himself?
I'd say it's both, to be completely honest with you. The Players Union is very stubborn. They do have a legitimate argument as well about collusion, cheap teams. One of the videos I've been working on is one on the Oakland A's, where they're rumored to be cutting their payroll from 80 million to maybe 50 or 40 million. So they're down to like 70. Like, they've raised season ticket prices. They've jacked up prices with parking and also with concessions. They've cut season ticket perks. They
really want that move to Vegas.
Well, it's both. It's like they're trying to sandbag. So just in case, like, they do have to move, there isn't much resistance to the move, even though they've been there for 50 years. They are that, or they want to force Oakland to agree to their terms, which is like, they want like this $12 billion, massive plaza in Howard Terminal. But like, the A's will pay for the stadium. They don't know who's going to pay for anything else. Oakland can't afford anything because they're in like deep debt. Like, they're having like tens of millions of dollars in budget deficit every year. They get paid like 9 figures from the government just to function. Like, Oakland, it's like they're in deep shit. They can't afford to pay for a stadium. That's why the Raiders had to leave. That's why the Warriors left for San Francisco. So that's why they're kind of like in the point, like, okay, let's see what's happening with Vegas. And they're like, and the A's unfortunately have all the leverage because, I mean, you can go to Vegas and play in their AAA stadium for a little bit and probably get better attendance than you did at the end of last year.
Because we all know the numbers are being helped with Mark Conte being named the new manager of the A's.
Oh, I know, right. You mean cheaper Bob Melvin? Yeah.
I mean, we all saw that as a real winner right there. So how long do you think this MLB lockout is going to last? Do you think we're going to see baseball this year?
I think so. I think they'll both come to their senses eventually. My belief is there will be like a delay. I think their spring training is going to be cut a little bit. I think they'll maybe cut a couple games. But if there's like a long delay and there's like a long work stoppage and there's another 60-game season, you might as well just send baseball down the river. Like, it's going to destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah.
They can't afford a lockout. They can't afford it. But unfortunately, I think both sides are really entrenched to the point where it's like, who's going to blink first? The players' union, they've been telling them for years, prepare for a lockout because they're just they're like they want their ways and like they want their salaries are screwed. Like they want like at least a salary floor, which most of the owners aren't going to agree with. And the baseball owners, they bled millions of dollars just by playing in 2020. Because all the fan bases, like I know Colorado lost over $100 million. Baseball as a whole, I think, lost something like $2 or $3 billion. It's at least in the billion figure range. But like they would have been better off not playing. But they have to consider that. It's like, wait, we don't want to pay more money because we're bleeding money right now.
I mean, it's almost like getting your cake and eating it too. The owners are
for both sides.
But Do you think that Major League Baseball though is kind of like the 60-year-old sport now, like where younger fans are not like
in a way? There's a small tangent of younger like audiences more analytically driven, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know if there's enough of that to go around. I think the thing too with like baseball, like I like it as a sport, going out for a night, relaxing. Pittsburgh is like, I mean, it's a beautiful stadium and they've got a good like entertainment setup, but I mean, you can laugh at bad baseball too, but that's an entirely different segment as well. But I would say for the most part, like I feel like there are a lot of franchises that are just like, because most weekday games, like if you look at Tampa Bay, they were not cracking 10,000. Oakland in the middle of their playoff run against Seattle couldn't even crack 5,000 for any of those weekday games.
That was like in Oakland. They were covering the top rows because they couldn't fill it. It was embarrassing.
It's like they've been doing that for a while. Like there are like certain footages of like Bob Melvin getting ejected, and you'd think you were like looking at it from 2020 because it's nothing but empty seats, and it's like, oh my god, like it's bad.
I'll say one more thing. I asked this to a bunch of people already. How would you rate Rob Manfred on a 1 to 10 scale of how his job has been between COVID? Between the sticky stuff, between, I don't know, just the CBA. How would you rate him from a 1 to 10?
I'd rate him like a 3. He's pretty much He's pretty much Bud Selig, but with a different set of clothing. He delegitimized an entire trophy by saying 3 words, piece of metal. He has done nothing but sabotage every single effort to try and market the sport. I think like he was one of the people who bitched at Mike Trout for like not marketing himself, if I remember correctly. I'm like, dude, that's not his job. Mike Trout is an outstanding player, but that's not his personality to like put himself out in the center. Like all he wants to do is like go to space and find colonies. Like that's his thing. His passion's astrology. Like he doesn't care about like being a celebrity.
Full context, we talked with Jesse Rodgers from ESPN a few weeks ago. He gave Manfred a 4 rating, not too far off from you.
4, maybe a 5.
And also not mention the 2020 negotiations where they were both at each other's throats, and the only reason why they played was because the manager just said, screw it, you're playing. That's all they did. And then there's a situation, I mean, the baseballs as well. You know, the stick, like spider tech, which they kind of botched as well until they realized, oh, wait, nobody's hitting anything. It's boring as hell because there's only 3 true outcomes for anyone, even soft contact hitters. So they had different baseballs throughout the year as well. So that conspiracy has been proven true.
So let me ask you about one Rob Manfred idea. So we were talking about all these different franchises. Some wanted to be cheap. Talk about the potential of a floor, even though the owners didn't want it. What did you think of Manfred's proposal from like a couple of months back of a $100 million floor and $180 million cap for all 30 teams?
I don't know if it's going to allow like small market teams to survive. That's the only problem. Do you think the Cleveland Indians, Tampa Bay Rays, Oakland Athletics, Pittsburgh Pirates, and Miami Marlins are going to accept a $100 million cap floor?
No.
Not with the way they run things. No.
And
like,
I don't
they would either have to sell their teams or move. Like you're creating like a chasm. Because, okay, you have $100 million payroll, but if you don't spend it wisely, you just have the 2006 Pirates where you just like have a bunch of old vets that just are collecting a paycheck and don't care. Like you get Jeremy Burnett's like being thrown out at first base with a base hit to right field. Like you're getting that situation.
And I don't know if teams like, the Dodgers, the Red Sox are going to agree to $180 million, like a $30 million drop in what the luxury tax threshold is. I was going to say the Yankees too, but I mean, considering the Yankee
Hal is not George.
Yeah,
he only worries about profit.
Yeah, that's crazy. Tom, you've been saying that where the Yankees are just, well, it's not just the Yankees, it's every team in baseball. Let me just put the money in my back pocket and not spend it.
Oh yeah, I mean Boston was kind of the same way too, if you think about it.
That's true. Yeah. One more question on the Manfred thing. So, do you like any of the changes he's been trying to make? Well, what's gonna make baseball get this appeal?
The only thing with baseball and the appeal of baseball is in its timelessness. It's in just, like coming out, seeing a ballpark on the diamond. The unwritten rules kill baseball, but at the same time, you can modernize it. I feel like there's a total clash of you want to remain stubborn and keep the unwritten rules and all that old stuff that held baseball back. And then you have the intelligence factor of it, like everything's super analyzed, too much data. And I feel like it's become too smart for its own good. So you get that culture clash there. And what you get is just like a mess where it may be more analytically inclined to have a 3 true outcomes, but it doesn't make it appealing. Like the art of base running is dead. The art of the stolen base is dead. The art of the base hit is dead. So you're looking, even the art of defense in some regards, like you're more doing it because, he'll get better value of, hitting a couple home runs every month instead of, quality defense. He might cost you 1 game, but win you 3. So that's the kind of trade-off you're getting with an overanalyzed sport, such as baseball. And then there were the gimmicks he brought in 2020, like, runner on second base in extra innings. Like, you're going up against the entire integrity of the game by having a runner on second base and that cheesy stuff. You won't have an automated strike zone to help umpires do their job better, but you'll allow this gimmick. You'll allow I think there were a couple others as well. The expanded playoffs as well. I don't agree with that at all. All you're doing is rewarding mediocrity and creating false hope for a bunch of other different franchises. I felt like baseball was always the most sport about rewarding consistency and rewarding excellence. That's what baseball was really good at. And I mean, it sucks because, the only thing they need to do is make the wild card game a 3-game series. Like 1 game is too fluky. That's all they need to do. They don't need to expand 12 teams or over expand it, because if you had the same rules in 2020 as you did now, you'd have had the Padres in the playoffs. You'd have had the Reds in the playoffs. You'd have had the Phillies in the playoffs. You may have had the Mets in the playoffs, which is like
Marlins.
Okay. Well, the Marlins, they fluked their way to a playoff because they were just the second place team. That was the second.
Season. Yeah.
That it was hard to pay attention to in 2020. It was just like it was soulless. That's because it was like, okay. To be fair, a lot of that too was hockey playoffs were going on in that time, which I was focusing on more. And the Pirates sucked, so it was like whatever. I'm gonna realize that they're terrible regardless. But
could you see yourself like not watching baseball if it goes into the season like one of these long lockouts?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Like, I know you have the content creation and all that, but I feel like, if it stretches into the season, you think 94 was bad? I don't know if a home run chase will save
baseball.
baseball.
Was 94. That's why they kind of shoved the steroid thing to the side, because they realized, wait, they're actually watching McGuire, Sosa, and Bonds hit dongs. The only reason why they started investigating it was because the money started drying up. It's so hypocritical. That's why, Bonds, Clemens, and all these guys aren't in the Hall of Fame. Like, Bonds and Clemens are the big ones. But it's like, this was accepted back then because nobody turned the other cheek just because it was making the money. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. And the other one I was going to bring up was the shift that they're talking about, trying to get rid of illegal shifting in baseball.
Extreme shifting, which is so you're taking away an extra dynamic. That's pretty much what it is. You're trying to force it to go to 70s baseball where you have a range. Like, okay, well, what does that do?
More culture clash.
I mean, I always thought that was ridiculous with shifting. I feel like shifting shouldn't have been allowed anyway, because that's just a dumb thing outside the field.
It's extra element. I mean, you have a risk factor in that too. I don't really have an issue with shifting per se.
I do agree with you, by the way, on the 2 out of 3 wild card. I mean, I want it like, so the local minor league here was the New York Penn League before MLB came and destroyed minor league baseball in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And how they did everything was 3-game series for all playoff series. The first game is the lower seed. The higher seed gets 2, and if necessary, 3. I think that's what the wild card format for MLB should be.
It should be, because one game is too fluky. Anything can happen in that regard.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on and talk about Nick. If you want to start this off, just the end year stuff.
Yeah, so just kind of shifting to, I don't know if I really want to do best athlete, worst athlete, because we're hearing that a million times over a lot of different content and interviews. But with the way COVID has been, how do you look at athletes in the year 2021 is the way I'll put it.
At the end of the day, they're just doing a job. I feel like they're just confused in how like all the protocols keep changing from every single day. Like now I think they're trying to change it to where like instead of like 10 days like quarantine, it's going to be 5, I believe, which would mean I know Carson Wentz just went on COVID protocol, but I mean, he may have a chance to play against Las Vegas if that's the case, and he's not symptomatic. So I don't know what to tell you. It's they keep changing and moving the goalposts like forward and back, and it's just hard to tell. What did you expect to happen when there's like a high virulent Omicron variant going around that spreads like wildfire, even among the vaccinated? Like, okay. So you have a bunch of games that are just like ruined because nobody can actually field a competitive team. Look at New Orleans yesterday. They had 22 players on COVID protocol, including their 2 starting quarterbacks, a good chunk of their offensive line, a lot of their defense, and different elements too. How do you expect New Orleans to win? Ian Book was running for his life most of the game because they were starting scout team O-line.
I mean, yeah, pretty much getting the book thrown at him, no pun intended. But basically, but I don't know. It's one of those things where we kind of knew this was going to happen. COVID was going to cause infections. COVID was going to cause. Look at the Rams. The Rams were at 20 plus before they got their players back.
Yeah.
Rams, Washington, and Cleveland. Houston's pretty close too, same as the Chargers.
And actually, what about the whole Raiders situation where they were complaining about, well, we don't like it because the date changed because of the game. And then J.C. Treader, who's the head of the NFL Players Association, was trying to change the games. It's kind of walking the line because he's a player. And
yeah, I think he had to step out of those negotiations because of the conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the ironic part was Seattle complaining about all of their issues, and they end up getting a COVID wave of their own. So,
well, it's funny because I remember at the start of summer, the original rule was about unvaccinated, that the only way forfeits could happen was by way of unvaccination, leading to it. So I said, okay, I guess things change with the Omicron stuff, but then our teams may be lying about their vaccination status, looking at Antonio Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers.
Well, Aaron Rodgers didn't actually lie about it. The Packers and the NFL knew he wasn't vaccinated.
Yeah, Green Bay media too.
Yeah, well, he misled the media. That's all he did.
Yeah.
But that's not the first time we've heard an athlete mislead the media.
Really.
Like he said he was immunized, which could mean anything in the world. That's when it's like, okay, yeah, this isn't.
By the way, do you think in his own head he was just like, I'm just going to make content. I'm going to make myself trend for one day.
I think he's just like, he just doesn't care. Yeah. Because the media spent the whole summer just slandering him left and right. So what can you really do about that?
Let me flip it over to more positive outlook for end of year stuff. Is there a team or a player you have your eye on for 2022?
Ooh, interesting question. I'm interested to see how the 49ers do. They look strong. Colts look interesting. The Dolphins have won 7 straight, even though it's been a soft schedule. Like they've got Tennessee and they've also got, I think, New England coming up. So it'll be interesting to see how everything shakes up there.
First team in NFL history, lose 7 straight, then win 7
And then win 7 straight, and they could be the first 1-7 team to ever make the playoffs.
That's
By the way,
scary.
I'll ask a question that Tom hasn't asked because he's a fan of this quarterback this year. What do you think of Mac?
Mac Jones?
Yes.
I like him. I think he's the best scheme fit for the Patriots system. I think he's the most NFL ready. And I think he's been like the most productive because, I mean, he's in a situation that allows him to thrive. They don't want to make him do too much. Short and medium passes, avoid major mistakes, keep it simple, keep it effective, and force a two-way game. That's just the way Patriots, like Bill Belichick runs his offense.
Yep.
A rather two-way Erhardt-Perkins system. That's how they usually like to do it. They like to do short, medium passes. They like to do heavy run, especially with imposing their will, time management. So that's a lot of the core components of like New England. So I think it fits their system well. And most of the other quarterbacks, like the only other one I think is being treated properly is Trey Lance because they're allowing him to sit. Lowest floor, highest ceiling. You already have a quarterback ready in Jimmy Garoppolo. There's no rush to start him. I mean, you may have to start him this week because, well, you're playing against Houston and Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, is a hand injury. You want that to heal up.
Even though he said he's going to try and gut it, which I don't.
Dude. I mean, Houston, you saw them upset. I was going to call them San Diego again. The Chargers. I keep calling them San Diego. I'm sorry.
It happens. It happens.
That's all right. It's like the Washington football team.
They call them the Redskins.
Yeah, I've up quite a few times. We need swear words.
Well, I mean, it's easier to call Washington just Washington instead of like the Chargers is, L.A. Like, nobody likes them in L.A. Are you kidding me? It's San Diego.
Oh, man. Go ahead.
Okay, so what is your favorite yearly event as a sports fan? I know the Super Bowl is the big one, but I
would say my favorite day is July 1st. NHL free agency, but unfortunately that hasn't happened in a while. Bobby Bonilla Day too. And there's going to be a couple other days too. I think it's like Brett Saberhagen Day. I think it was and then a big contract. I think Chris Davis will probably have that payout. I don't know when that payout's going to be. That's going to be a big day for the next 15 years.
Oh my God. I need to keep an eye on whatever date that is. I need to start celebrating that.
Fantastic day.
Is that like Bobby Bonilla Day for the Mets?
Yeah.
Pretty much. A lot of deferred money, and they had to add like a decent bit. Let me look up Chris Davis.
That is one of those contracts that makes you think, oh, what did I do?
They had a terrible. Well, they're paying, it starts in 2023, and until 2025, they are paying him over $9 million a year.
Basically, to sit and do nothing.
Yeah. Is this on July 1st as well?
They had to add because like that 1 year, it's like, okay, get out. And then until 2026 to 2031, or 32, actually, $3.5 million. And then 5 years at $1.4 million. So he's going to make $59 million over a span of 15 years.
Must be nice.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I'd love that. I'd love to make $59 million for doing nothing for 15 years. All I do is just sit around and shitpost. If that, I'd have FU money. That's all I need.
Well, about your shit postings. So when we first spoke to you all those years ago, you were doing your, I think it was the first year you were doing This Week in Sports Ball. You had the rants of the certain teams. I think you only had like one or two, the first like face reveal. Now you've got the live streams. You're partnering with different brands, guys like 5 Points. What kind of videos do you prefer? The live streams or the stuff like Sports Ball?
The main videos, I prefer those. Like live streams, I don't think they're really my forte per se. I think it's more like, I mean, this kind of face is unfortunately not really all that marketable. But I would say that my personal, like, I prefer like just doing like sitting down, doing a general vid, and then working from there. With Sports Ball, I feel like it gets kind of grindy, especially with a routine. I consider it one big project. I don't consider it like a smaller sector projects. And then like this year has just been like, what is going on? Why is this year on so many drugs? I'm like, oh God. I've only got 3 more videos. And then we go to the playoffs and it's probably going to be more messed up there too. But
probably.
I feel like it's just like every like NFL fan that doesn't make the playoffs are going to be like, oh my God.
Well, the one I want to ask about, one of my favorites on your channel is the Legacy of Failures.
Yes.
So how did that come to be? Because I enjoy those videos.
Oh, my first one was actually just like a troll vid on the Washington Capitals, just like the no cups. So that's all I did it for. It's like your team sucks. You have no cups because it's like the Capitals.
That's how I found you.
I did.
That's how I found you. Yeah, that's how I found you.
The Vikings one was just like pain. It's like, this is actually interesting. Like, I had plans for them. That's why I did that and expanded. And the Blues one was supposed to be one like, oh, no cups, hilarious. And then you look at their history, it's actually really sad. A lot of their stuff. I remember hearing about their potential move to Saskatoon. First time I heard it was actually a Players Tribune article by Doug Gilmore. And I'm just sitting there like, wait, they almost moved to Saskatoon? And then I looked it up. It's like, oh, they almost moved to Saskatoon.
How bad is it? Like, it's staying with these legacy of failure videos. Like, is it a happy moment or is it a sad moment when one of these legacy of failures finally comes?
I'm just sitting there like, are you kidding me? It's like literally a year or two after. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I was half expecting Toronto to win the cup last year. Because, like, well, yeah, that's like every team usually wins after I do one. Might as well keep going. And then they end up blowing a 3-1 series lead. It's like, and I'm even angry. I'm like, are you kidding me? You blew a 3-1 series lead. What the hell is wrong with you?
So it's good luck and a bad jinx at the same time.
In a way, yeah. The jinx is very real.
Well, the one thing I want to ask is you do a lot of YouTube content. We're trying to grow a podcast network. What advice would you give to somebody to grow? Because like when we first spoke to you 4 or 5 years ago now, you were just cracking 100,000. Now you're
500,000.
Now you're 500,000 plus. What do you tell people who really want to grow?
My belief is don't focus on money, numbers, or anything like that. When you start focusing on that, your content's going to suffer. Keep your eyes focused on how you can improve your product, how you can develop your product, and just the product in general. Because I feel like all the other stuff is secondary. If it's any good and you have luck, it will come. That's always been my belief.
And it's all the big talk is always about the algorithm.
The algorithm is weird though because it keeps changing, and now it's starting to focus on shorter vids because they want to compete with TikTok. So it keeps changing every now and again. A couple years ago it was about the video essay, and now it's about like something different. So like, just focus on what you do best. That's the only thing you can do because the algorithm is just going to change here and there. And it's just like, it don't click on it because that's disingenuous. I feel like people focus more on just like genuine, like just personality than they do with just like a fake belief. So
do you worry about like either censorship or certain things you do in videos, opinions being, because I was talking to somebody the other day. Well, I'm the offended crowd. I don't like this. I don't like that. Do you worry about that at all or no?
I'm more worried about the NFL finally putting the hammer down and telling me to stop doing it. So
that's the copyright concerns.
Yeah. Well, it's not the copyright concerns. Remember the NFL thing is like this telecast is an exclusive benefit of the National Football League. Any express written, any broadcast, retransmission, description, or recap without the express written consent of the NFL is prohibited. So once they realize it's like, oh, wait, I'm actually doing stuff that's not against them, it's like sports ball's done. So, yeah. And then maybe a few other things too. Because I'm not exactly one to kiss the ass of the Shield. Let's just so it's like, we care about our brand too much. We're moving in. Get out. I'm surprised that doesn't happen already. So,
no, it's crazy. And are you looking to expand into other things? Have you looked at other things, or?
I don't know yet. I think the thing is, like, once again, like, it's just like finding the time to do it. It's just like you have to pick and choose your battles. Like, so there are times where like I want to get into more historical stuff. So I feel like that's the stuff I enjoy doing the most. And there were a couple of those I did earlier in the year too. Thrashers, the Oilers, the two videos on them. I did one on I'm trying to think. Ottawa Senators, the expansion draft.
Yeah.
So I enjoy doing those. Like those were like, change of pace from like the usual grind. Like it's like modern sports can get kind of samey after a bit, and it's just hard to really like get yourself motivated into something instead of like looking at somebody like say a Hugh Culverhouse or a Marge Schott or some like larger than life personality that's like, you got away with this back then? Jeez. Okay.
Now, has it been a help or a hindrance, COVID being able to do more? It's
been a mix. I feel like At the start of it, I was kind of worried. At the same time, I didn't know if I was going to be able to survive. I mean, SeatGeek was one of my bigger sponsors, and I mean, guess what didn't happen for a good chunk of the year? Live sports. So they lost their entire revenue stream for a good bit, which is absolutely understandable. So most of the time I focus more on like just, stuff on the bucket list that I didn't have time to get to. And then like I was able to like get it done. Like Jean Van de Velde, that vid on them, Marty Schottenheimer, which I'm actually glad I did before he passed, even though he probably doesn't give a shit. Mike Keenan was a big one. There was a couple others as well. The Wheel of Discipline was another one.
That was a good one.
That was one I had for a while, but it's just like, whatever, I have some time, let's do it.
Brings the gag to life.
And then 2020 felt kind of soulless for like sports. It's just like, okay, like there's nothing going on. And it's just no fans. It's just like hollow. And it's like, okay, how do I make this enjoyable? And like, it made it a little tougher, but at the same time, it's like, this is boring. It's like, okay. It's just like, okay, you have like, I think the crowd adds a good bit to the atmosphere and just the element of a sporting event. So when you don't have a crowd, it's like, okay, you can't pipe in like stadium noise. So there's not much you can do there.
So you kind of were in that content filling mode.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah. I think a lot of people were. I think it wasn't just me. So, I mean, hopefully, knock on wood, it doesn't happen again. But I mean, if you think about it, the NHL is going through some stuff right now. I mean, they say they're going to come back, but there's so many like COVID waves happening. I don't know if you're going to be able to like adequately return in a timely manner because like they're just a bunch of teams that are out right now. You have baseball. You don't know if that's coming back. Football is, just sitting there. They're going to truck through it regardless of like if a bunch of orphan children are dying in the middle of the field. It's like, whatever, you're playing. Nuclear apocalypse, they're playing.
Just speaking of, passion and everything, just when you are working on something you're passionate about, sometimes some people will find themselves falling out of love of it. How do you avoid that as a content creator, especially in the times of COVID?
I mean, there are times where I feel like I've had like some disillusionment, especially with the NFL. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to like, if I lose the love of it, that's an inevitability. I feel like as I've grown older, I feel like I've become more a fan of the game of football than I am with a specific team. Even though I did grow up with the Steelers, I'll always have a spot for them in my heart because, you grew up with them. But at the same time, it comes down to, okay, like the game itself is pretty crappy right now because of just like the focus more on money and like double standards. Also, the allegations of like, all the terrible ref ball going on where you can argue it's like it's the first time it's like, okay, are these people on the take for some like objective or are they actually doing it because they are getting their marching orders from the NFL? So it's one of those situations.
So just to wrap things up here, how, we spent time talking about how when we interviewed you a few years back, you had just cracked 100,000. Now you're at 500,000. How amazing is it when you look back on like how many years, 4 or 5 years it's been now with content creating and how much you've grown?
I feel like it's just like the way I see it, I don't really look at like a big picture. I more or less look at it as a one day at a time sort of thing. So any day I'm above water is a good day. So like I consider this a day and then tomorrow is a day and then a day and then you keep going and then you don't like, I try not to see the mountain in front of me because it gets too intimidating. Like if you look at like the ground beneath you and then focus on the steps and then take them as it goes, then I feel like you might be, and then occasionally looking up just a little bit further. I feel like it's just better for like, a less stressful perspective than say, oh, okay, like I've been doing this for X amount of years. I've been doing it for like, it's like, I feel like it might breed a sense of entitlement in that regard. But if you look at it from like, okay, today is a new day. Let's get started. Let's kick some ass. That's the only way I feel like you can do it, especially in this like volatile medium, say like videos or anything like that.
Well, I just want to say I really enjoy the content. You make me laugh, you make Tom laugh, and our other co-host Nick laugh. And I also enjoy you on social media when I see you put your comments out on Twitter as well.
Twitter is only good for shit posting. That's the only way you can do it. If you're doing it for anything else, you'll go insane.
No, but I'll have a really bad day, and then I read one of your tweets, and I'm like, okay, I can laugh now. So,
all right, Schlasser, UrinatingTree, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you all for tuning in. Tom Vandal, Nick Morgasen. We'll see you next time.